Good day, everyone. I'm Angel Aquino from Charles Darwin University, and joining me later in the video are my co-authors, Professor Elsie Orr from the University of the Philippines and LJ Miranda from the Allen Institute for AI. This year at ACL, we are introducing the UD-NewsCrawl Treebank, a large-scale syntactic resource for Tagalog that we've been developing from 2021 to 2024. Now, you may ask, what's so important about just another language resource? Well, UD-NewsCrawl is the largest Tagalog tree bank to date. There are two other UD tree banks that were made for Tagalog before this, but these only contain around 100 sentences or 1,000 words each. This new tree bank is two orders of magnitude larger, with 15,000 sentences and a total of 350,000 words that we fully annotated with various grammatical properties. Our ACL paper details the tree bank annotation process and evaluations. We also highlight some challenges that we encountered while making this tree bank. In particular, some ways in which the Universal Dependencies guidelines don't really work well with the distinct features of Tagalog grammar. Now, to give a brief overview of the Tagalog language, as well as the annotation project itself, I'll pass the mic over to our project leader, Professor Elsie Orr.
Tagalog is an Austronesian language belonging to the Western Malayo-Polynesian branch of the language family. It is spoken natively in the southern area of Luzon by around a quarter of the population in the Philippines. It is the basis of the national language, officially named Filipino, which is used as one of the official languages in government and mass media, as well as a medium of instruction in schools. It is learned and spoken as a second language by majority of Filipinos across the archipelago and in the Filipino diasporic communities around the world. Among the distinctive features of Tagalog is its symmetrical voice marking system, which does not privilege any specific voice like languages that have accusative or ergative voice marking systems. Symmetrical voice languages have multiple types of transitive constructions which do not involve argument demotion, such as what happens, for example, in forming English passive sentences. Tagalog sentences usually have a focused argument which agree with the morphology of the predicate head. It may be the agent, patient, location, instrument, or beneficiary argument in the clause. While Tagalog has a canonical predicate initial word order, arguments that follow the predicate head can follow a relatively flexible order. Languages with similar linguistic systems to Tagalog pose a challenge to universal dependencies as concepts in the framework draw mostly on more well-known Indo-European systems for their definitions. For instance, the description of nominal subject as the proto-agent argument in the clause would only be applicable to actor voice clauses in Tagalog and not to other voice construction types. Similarly, when the agent argument is not the focused argument in a clause, it is not extremely clear which category of syntactic relation, as defined in the UD guidelines, could be used to describe its relation and function. Despite the Austronesian language family constituting a big percentage of documented languages worldwide, there is currently only a limited number of Austronesian languages in the UD database, and of those available, most remain as small tree banks made up of around 1,000 tokens, with a couple with even less. Testing the application of the UD scheme in annotating more Austronesian languages would be vital in determining its universal applicability that would allow for cross-linguistic comparative and typological studies at scale. The tree bank we are introducing aims to contribute to the expansion of Austronesian datasets available in the UD database. The Tagalog UD-NewsCrawl Treebank contains over 15,000 sentences with 360,000 tokens. It was manually annotated by native speakers, all of whom have varying levels of knowledge in linguistics. The text included in the tree bank is sourced from the Leipzig Tagalog NewsScroll 2011 corpus, and it consists of material collected from Tagalog news sites. Therefore, most of the sentences are written in the declarative and in a more formal register. However, use of informal language can also be found in the corpus, which can be observed in texts that quote a person's speech. The corpus also contains several instances of Tagalog-English code switching and code mixing, which does reflect the bilingual nature of many Tagalog speakers. Because of how the corpus was split into 150 files with 100 sentences each in order of increasing sentence length, many sentences were isolated from their original context. The automated sentence tokenization also produced fragments or run-on sentences, which made annotation more challenging. The Treebank was actually created for a DFG-funded project with specific objectives for linguistic analysis, and so there were annotation decisions that were incompatible with the original UD guidelines. Post-processing was therefore done for further quality control and to ensure that it meets current UD standards. We described the complete annotation procedure or workflow in our paper.
Up next, we have LJ Miranda to present some experimental results from our tree bank.
So, based on the NewsCrawl Treebank, we trained several models using the Spacey framework. So, Spacey is a well known library for NLP. It takes in text, converts them into a set of embeddings, and passes them into a pipeline consisting of a lemmatizer, a morphological analyzer, and a parts of speech tagger, and a dependency parser. So for lemmatization, we use an edit tree recursive algorithm and then train a CNN with a softmax layer to predict the best edit tree for a given token. For the analyzer and the parts of speech tagger, we treat it as a simple multi-label classification problem. And again, it's a simple softmax layer to predict the scores given a certain token. And then finally, for the dependency parser, we use a variant of the non-monotonic arc-eager transition system that was introduced in the Spacey library in itself. So in general, we experiment on different type of embeddings, such as your standard word embeddings like fast text or the multi-hash embeddings, and context-sensitive vectors like mDeberta, Roberta Tagalog, and XLM Roberta, which is more cross-lingual. We then evaluate each model on lemmatization, parts of speech tagging, morphological analysis, and dependency parsing as seen in the table over there in the slide. So, from our experiments, a model fine tuned on top of XLM Roberta, which is the cross lingual model, is the best approach overall with the highest lemmatization and dependency parsing scores. So, we open source all of these models in Hugging Face, and you can download them by scanning the QR code above. Finally, we also show that our current best baseline model, the one trained from XLM Roberta, generalizes on previous Tagalog tree banks. So in the table below, we show that our model has the best performance in both the TRG and Ognayan tree banks, suggesting that the larger tree bank is a good corpora for model training. Of course, this result is expected given that we're training on a much larger corpora, but this shows that the quality and diversity of NewsCrawl can be used as a new basis for future Tagalog-based models.
Now, some might question the utility of large scale annotation when LLMs are now doing a lot of the tasks that we once needed annotated datasets to train. But we argue that tree banks still contain a richness of information that remains useful for things like cross linguistic analysis, which was the original purpose of our funding, and also for fine grained evaluation, as well as the creation of more interpretable and easily adjustable systems when more black box machine learning approaches are insufficient. One other key point of discussion is our critique of UD. Although it's currently one of the most widely used frameworks for cross linguistic annotation, working on this tree bank revealed to us that these guidelines do in fact have some latent biases. In the introduction to UD, its creators state that their decisions to satisfy many possible use cases of annotation led them to favor, quote, traditional grammar notions and terminology. While our paper doesn't discuss this in depth, perhaps this speaks to a more inherent Eurocentricity that's been ingrained throughout the traditions of linguistics and NLP. In summary, we've presented a rundown of the UD-NewsCrawl Treebank, which is now available on Hugging Face. 15,000 sentences may still seem small compared to other NLP resources out there, but Tagalog is the 23rd most spoken language in the world. That's more speakers than Korean or Italian, which both have vastly more NLP resources. So hopefully our contribution can enable and encourage more work and development for Tagalog and Philippine languages. And we hope also that in reflecting on some of the biases and limitations of the tools and frameworks we work with, we can cultivate more sensitive, equitable, and inclusive design choices in NLP as a whole. Thank you for listening, and we hope you have a good ACL.